Good afternoon, everyone. I hope the lunch was great and everyone's back here. The session post lunch is always tricky, but I've got a brilliant set of panelists. So make sure you stay tuned and we go from here. So you know, in just over 30 days from now, we enter the most crucial phase, as I say. Not just for consumers, but also for marketers and brands. Ramadan, a month, as we say, of spirituality, family gatherings, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, consumers tend to spend more, and we've seen that. The spends on food, clothing, etc. Tend to spike. But with all that, two most important, I would say, consumer cohorts, as I say, the Gen Z and Millennials, are very different in their behaviors. I call them similarly dissimilar of sorts. Now, with the uniqueness in mind and the seasonality as well, I've never been on the brand side, I've never been in the market, I've always been on the other side. This question was always lingering on my head, saying that, from a brand side or from an agency side that work with brands, how do you reshape or how do you adapt your strategies or your Ramadan campaigns, keeping in mind the Gen Z and the Millennials and Ramadan as a month that's coming up. So I'll start off with you, Fabian.
Okay, thank you, Kartik. So actually, how to receive the brand during the Ramadan, specifically for Gen Z and Millennials? What I see, so from my point of view, there are three things actually. So the first of all, if we talk about the audience, Gen Z and Millennials are always online, and this thing is become the norm for all of us. So therefore, they are push the brand, the marketers, to push forward the ads from back then from the TV traditionals to the online. That's the reality which currently happening. The second of it is in terms of the content. So I believe everyone here is also experienced the same just like me. For instance, every time you scroll in your social media, it could be like TikTok or even Meta, you always see the content which is being delivered by the creators, the influencers. From my understanding, this is because nowadays the audience want to see the real content. It's not only the polished content. Hence, most of the time we can see maybe most of it, the brand coming with the content which is already fabricated or being delivered by the creators or the influencers. The third thing is, I think, as the marketers, in order to receive for this Ramadan, we need to know first the local nuances during this Ramadan. I believe everyone, if you are talking about Ramadan, is starting for a breakfasting all together with your friends. And this actually is bring up the nostalgia era. So these kind of things that actually brand can evoke the emotional value and even can riding on from this angle to deliver more of the message into the emotional things. So that's my point of view.
Perfect. A lot of your brands cater to the Gen Z more than the millennials. What my perspective is, but I could be wrong. But how does that work? How does this season and this unique behavior during Ramadan? How do you adapt to this in terms of your strategies or the campaigns that you're planning on?
So first of all, thank you for having me here. But I think the key word to your question, I think it's how this generation reshaped the way we see Ramadan. And I would like to see it in first one bigger spectrum. I don't think it's only Ramadan. This generation has reshaped in every single thing that we are doing as a marketeers. I think that's one big thing. So if you ask about how do they reshape? I think I agree on how content and how do we animate is, but also it's in the spirit of, as a brand owners, what we should offer. Not only coming from a message standpoint, but also coming from a product innovation standpoint, also coming from a perspective of service and personalization standpoint. Because it's not only about product anymore, nor it's only about the service that we gave anymore, it's one full package. Hence the whole equation of people are giving reviews, people are giving honest feedbacks about a certain brands, about a certain product. So I think, again, what I'm saying is that they have been reshaping in a lot of things. I would say they are important because they are important. The phenomena of, I would say, end of last year, my mom asked me to buy her a labu. She's not a millennial, nor she's a Gen Z, but she wants that because everyone is talking about it. So I think that reshaped the thing. How do we create it as an interesting point of view that they can capture? But of course, in the spirit of different, we are calling it as a time period where festivity comes, because festivity, there's a lot of festivities. I think in 2025 alone, we are entering Chinese New Year, we are entering Ramadan, of course, big time. We are entering a lot of festivity season. So how we are shaping the way we are communicating with them, capture that trend, make it more exciting, and infuse the whole elements of that particular festivity, where Indonesia is a very communal and collective society. So how do we bring it together and craft in a way where we can touch their heart also and make them talk about us? I think that's how it has been reshaped in a way.
Interesting. And I'd like to hear more from a telco perspective, because we know consumer spends and the audience behavior, but what are you seeing from a telco perspective during the season?
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for having me and having all of us here, and a very good afternoon to all our friends and colleagues here. I believe that this is a very important time, first of all. Ramadan period, especially in Indonesia, oh my God. It's been now almost 5 years I have been in this country, and as we all know that this festival is celebrated in more than 50 countries, but the energy level over here is very different. Especially when I see Indonesia's rich cultural heritage, which gets very well knotted with the traditions that we have. And two things which comes to my mind is, one is about that spirit of togetherness, which we call it as a gotong royong here in Indonesia. And the second is about the people movement, because it's a huge homecoming time for most of the people here in Indonesia, which we call it as a mudik time. Coming back, especially for telecom, and especially for the Gen Z segment or millennial segment that we are talking about, Gen Z as a segment, as we all know, 74 million Gen Zs we have here in Indonesia, which is, much more buzzing and passionate. So what we try to do is to understand them first, their special behavior during this time, because where in telecom, especially the usage behavior shifts from during the daytime, the usage is more towards in the evening, and that's where we see the peak time in telecommunication. The usage, the consumption pattern increases after the breakfasting in the evening, and it goes almost till morning at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. till some time. So that's where we see that the consumption, especially on the digital platform really moves up very high. And that's where I agree with what Danar was talking about, is that how our marketing strategy is more focused and targeted during this time is what becomes a very interesting factor. So all our campaigns, all our activities is first understand them and then customize our product and services depending upon the time frame that we have within this 24 hours. That's how we look at it.
Wonderful, wonderful, great perspective. Well, the next one is for Fabian. I was reading a research that said that consumers tend to spend more on beauty and personal care during Ramadan, which is great for brands like yours. But at the same time, from the Gen Z behavior perspective, right, loyalty is fragile, right? And most of the purchasing decisions are taken basis either social media interactions or what their favorite influencers have to say about a product or a service, more than traditional celebrities. Given all of these realities which exist, how, when you worked on campaigns for this, for the month of Ramadan, how do you go about creating this authenticity at the same time? Because it's a month of spirituality and all that. How do you bring about the angle of suitability into the campaigns or into the work that goes out during this month for this audience?
Interesting question, because you're right. Yes, I think I have three answers to it. One, like what I mentioned in the beginning, that picking what product would be our hero to animate that Ramadan period is very, very critical, because we need to create something that's suitable for the needs and the usability during that period of time. Of course, we do have, from a category perspective, we do have hair care, makeup, skincare, anything useful, as well as helping people. Even there are some brands that we have that could help providing solutions to their problems of skin. And sometimes, of course, when we know about an insight where on Ramadan, then people tend to gather together, people want to look good, people want to feel good, people want to reconnect with their families and friends. I think this is where product plays a big role on how we are animating the campaign towards Ramadan. Second, I think you're right. We are as a brand and as a group work a lot with influencers. We are indexed way higher on a digital media platform. So that personalization and understanding what kind of communities that we want to activate that is relevant and have a resonance of a messaging towards the audience is very, very critical. And I think the last part to your point of loyalty, I would say continuity, is that not stopping there. Like what I said also earlier, that festivity is going on, and that's where you build loyalty. And it's related to my second point of a community. How do we create, there is one part of gratification or incentivization at the beginning, for example, from the community, but how do we craft and create more services, more knowledge bank, I would say, as well as services to these communities so that we can bring them in the longer run, in a sense. And I think Ramadan could be a moment where it becomes the gate of communities starting, but I think the bigger question is also, what would you do after that period of time? So yeah, that's what I feel.
That's an interesting one. You touched upon personalization, as a topic here right now. I always believe that the moment you start personalizing things, you compromise on scale. I may be wrong. But I want to understand, Danar, from you, because you work with a lot of brands and you do a lot of Ramadan campaigns. And especially for when we look at millennials and Gen Z, to them, personalization is the key. But from your perspective, if you do personalization, does it hamper scale? And if the answer is no, then possibly I want to understand, if you're using any kind of tools, technologies to ensure that you meet personalization at the same time have scale in the work that you do.
So yeah, I think that's a good question, and I'm just like intrigued to Fabian mentioned earlier regarding his mom asking to buy labu. So basically, what we do is actually we have new approach. We've seen a new approach within this market. So back then, what we see when it comes into the media campaign, then only media that always push to getting the response. Then you can name it impressions, click, and stuff, right? But most of cases as of now, creative and communities again, like what Fabian mentions, is playing the pivotal role, and the trend which was emerging within this market. Now, most of the advertisers using the many-to-many approach. What does it mean? So, most of the advertisers try to win the scrolling, the searching, try to get the FYP, right? And then want to have the SEO within the social media. That can only be done if the advertisers serve with a multiple creative. Because now, from my point of view, creative has now become the new targeting, and at the same also be the new currency. So, having said that, I believe with the multiple creative formats, so I can even target to Fabian moms to advertise what double. So those kind of things that I observe within the market now is getting emerged. That's why most of the advertisers now pay special attentions or even invest their time to building the content or even the community. So that's my point of view. So we are not really sacrificing in terms of the targeting, but yes, we have aided the new approach during this Ramadan.
Chandra, you spoke about how you see spike in conversations or digital consumption, late at night, going up to early morning. Which brings me to the next point, right? During Ramadan, there are certain content genres which get more visibility compared to the others. Like for instance, cooking shows, and recently I've seen health content. The younger generation getting more conscious about the health during Ramadan. But Fabian, from your perspective, have you seen any similar trends? When you've worked on these Ramadan camps, have you seen some similar trends in terms of certain content consumption getting higher? Pasha was spoken at the time, but more from a content consumption genre. Any insights on that? Yeah.
It is. The condition, I always say to have a discussion with the team. The thing is, the most difficult things right now is that the evolution of the topic and the content is changing so fast that we felt like we are keeping on playing a catch-up game. And that evolution sometimes is a black box on its own. We don't know what's next. Suddenly, who knows that one content out of a girl somewhere could become so popular, and then we try to catch the trend. And when we try to catch the trend, it's already gone for 2 days and basically it's done. So you're right, there is a spike, and I think that's where the beauty of us as marketeers to now trying to be able to latch ourselves to data, analytics, insights, of understanding this in a very quick turnaround. And I think if I'm going to relate back a little bit to content has always been there, right? And as a marketeers, we always work to build content. It's been there for decades, it's been forever. But back in the days, it was not as fast as today. So the marriage of what content that is good and the way we connect it with numbers and data and understanding all this and create a human connection of it, That's what's critical. Else, it's not gonna matter.
Great. I think take the last, just take the last couple of minutes. If there was one piece of advice, or just in probably in one sentence, if you were to spill the beans and say, this is what we believe each marketer, everyone sitting in this room, should do to make your Ramadan campaign a success, what would it be? And I'll start with Chandra.
Okay, so especially since we are talking about Gen Zs and the Millennials, first of all, not in one sentence I'll be able to articulate that, but we all need to remember that today's Gen Zs, they are really authentic and they are transparent and they are open. Okay, so it's very important to hear them. A lot of times we tend to ignore them. It's very important to hear them because the right and to the point feedback comes from them. So more we listen to the Gen Zs, the more we are able to customize our product and services according to that. Millennials, and especially on the top segment, that's what we see from the content and everything point of view. Religious things, donations related is more targeted, but when you look at from the Gen Z's point of view, during Ramadan time, hobbies, spending time together, these are the places where they look into the content more, and that's where we have to keep our eyes and ears open, is what I believe.
Thanks for that. Fabian, one advice?
I think we talk about you're asking about the precision at scale, personalization and stuff. I only have some of them, because of course, when it comes to Ramadan, preparation is there. We prepare something for Ramadan. But I think one thing that related to the optimization and data-driven mindset that I was saying before, I think we should start fast during Ramadan. Don't waste the time. We start fast. We fail fast because when we know it's not working, so pivot fast. I think that's the only way to keep on
Fail fast, but fail forward. Thank you so much.
So, my only POV is, I have two words actually, authenticity and agility, because that's really trigger the way we can gain the results. Say for instance, if we talk about Ramadan, it's not only talk about Ramadan, right? So you also talking about TR or the Idul Fitri, right? So that's the moment that actually grabs your audience there. So you really need to expose them. You really need to win their attentions. And again, the audience can easily spot in authenticity. Hence, the authenticity is really matters at the current era.
Thank you so much for these unique views. I think it was a fabulous conversation. I hope the audience loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rama, for the question.